book is called Nonlinear, and it's about technology, but in an interesting way, what technology does to us as people. We think a lot about technology. We also experience technology all the time in every waking moment of the day. But we don't really think about how it affects us, our brains, our thinking, our actions. So this is something which is a fascinating topic for me, and I decided to write about the impact of technology and how it is shaping our future and how it's affecting us. That is, in a nutshell, what my book is all about. Well, I mean, technology as a topic is quite near to me. I keep on experimenting, I keep on using. I also do a lot of self-learning to understand how today's technology works. And it was natural that, the book is sort of, based around technology. But as I said, it's more to do with, how it impacts us rather than by about technology itself. Well, I mean, the book is for pretty much everybody because, as I said, though the book is about technology, it's not a technical book, but it more talks about, a very simple understanding of what the technology that we experience right now all about and how it has changed over, the history of mankind over the last 50,000 years. And with these changes, how it impacts human beings. So technically, it's a book which is relevant for everybody who's a bit curious to know a bit more and more interested in how the technology can be consumed and used in a safe way. So non-linear, the most basic way in which we encounter the term non-linear is in school when we learn about geometry, and linear means a straight line, non-linear means a curve or maybe a circle. So anything which is not straight. And my point is that technology that we experience in the past, maybe till the last 15 or 20 years, has pretty much been linear. While as today's technology, especially with AI, generative AI now, and social media, technology has changed quite a bit. I'll give an example. Imagine 20 or 25 years ago, we had television as the main medium of entertainment. And pretty much everybody had the same set of channels. So, suppose we had 12 channels, 20 channels. We know that 8 o'clock, a particular program will come. On Wednesdays, a particular program will come. So, if you can imagine that the same, advertisements, the same programs are seen by everybody at the same time. Also, television classically is a linear medium. So it is a program coming at 8 o'clock. And if you miss it, you can't go back. I'm talking about obviously, 20 years ago, 15 years ago. So that's an example of linear technology that, there'll be something going on which is same for everybody and it goes in one direction. Then obviously, there was a facility to record. Then we had, the satellite TV, and now we have OTT, which is Netflix and Prime Video. And what has changed in this entire game is that now, for example, watching anything has become non-linear. So, for example, if you are watching something on YouTube and I'm watching on something on YouTube right now, both of us have a choice to, watch whatever we want. In case we happen to see an advertisement, both of us will see different ads. So now today's technology allows to customize what people watch, what people experience, and that keeps on changing. So that's an example of non-linear. I'll give another example. There was a time when, when there's a new car in the market, or there's a new, soap or shampoo which is coming in the market. What will happen is that on TV you'll see an ad, then you'll go to the shop and you'll ask for the product, and then you buy it. But now you don't have to, actively hunt for it. When you actually browsing something itself, you can buy. E-commerce means that without you can know more about the products even without seeing the ad for the product. Lot of products are advertised, not necessarily on mass media, but on social media. So this is also an example. Typically, you don't have to know more to take a decision. Now, a lot of times you end up taking a decision when you're browsing something, when you're watching something, and then action comes as a result. So again, the earlier linear process of I come across something, then I find more details, and then I like something, and then I buy. That linear process, doesn't really work now. So that's what I mean by non-linearity. And the other quick thing is I want to mention about non-linearity is that there's also a circular mechanism, and that's something which has happened after social media. So let's say if you're the kind of person who likes to browse certain things, then when you go to that site or go to the app next time, you're likely to see the same things. I mean, YouTube is a classical example. Suppose I'm a big fan of music and I keep on searching for music videos. There's a high chance that next time I log in, my recommended list will have a lot of music options, which means that there's also, at the other end, somebody is looking at what you're doing, what you're doing, what you're choosing, and then the same thing comes back to you next time you go back. So there's also a circularity, there's a feedback mechanism. So with this kind of a non-linearity, there are challenges. Our brain is not geared. Our brain hasn't actually changed quite a bit, since the time our Homo sapiens came into being, into existence. But it's only in the last 15-20 years, the brain has come under a lot of load because of this inherent non-linearity, and that leads to mental health problem. That leads to maybe you always being in a tense situation. It also means at times that your basic ability to think, process, takes a back seat, because everything is coming to you on a platter. Just the way this is a era of, let's say, processed foods. Now, because of social media and non-linear mechanism, you get a lot of processed information. So I think, as humans, we always been good at thinking and solving problems, but now you can go to Google, you can go to Chat GPT, you can use a lot of other tools, and you don't need to think. So to that extent, I like this anomaly that just the way processed foods can have a negative impact on our body. The oil, as you have natural food, you have fiber-rich food that is good for the body. Processed food is not necessarily good for the body, with a lot of carbohydrates and sugar. Similarly, when you use the brain to think, to do diagnostic reasoning, is good for the brain. You're making the brain work, but every answer is coming to you via Google and Chat GPT, and you don't have to remember phone numbers, and you don't have to remember how do you go from place A to B, because there's a Google Maps. With all these tools, its life is easy, but at the same time, we are cheating our brain in not really thinking, and that is not something which is good to humans. That's what I believe. So non-linearity, there's some obviously good points about non-linearity, but if you don't take into account how it works and how it affects us, there's a high chance that there could be a negative impact on our brains and on us as human beings. I think my biggest takeaway is all of us, it's okay to use technology, and especially technology which makes our thinking easier. So there's no need to add numbers because there's a calculator, right? Or you can ask a chatbot to calculate something. So those are good parts, right? But at the same time, understanding, our world, how technology, works to an extent, to what extent there are watchouts because of overusage of technology. How do you control that? For example, mobile phone addiction is a big challenge for our era, because for everything, we go to the mobile phone and we keep on browsing. So I think the ability of a human being to think, to develop diagnostic reasoning, that is critical. And some of that learning can come only if you take a step back, think a bit about, okay, so what is this technology? How is it helping us, obviously, and at the same time how it can have some negative impact. So I think taking a step back, becoming aware of how this technology is different than earlier technology, I think some of those learnings are quite critical. That's my first message. The second message is that, like most of the things in life, today's technology has a lot of advantages, but at the same time there are a lot of disadvantages. So how do we consciously look at the positive side of technology and make the most of these advantages, and at the same time be a bit wary and cautious about the negative impact of technology, and as far as possible reduce it, or as far as possible don't give in to the temptation. Obviously, there's no 100% in this game, but to that extent awareness leads to better decision making, and maybe not given to some of the negative parts of the technology. And the third one is, I strongly believe, I'm a optimist at heart, and I believe that today's technology can only help us if we use it responsibly. And then in my book, I talk about something called as digital renaissance, which is, I've taken some parallels with the classical renaissance, which happened in Europe in the 14th and 15th century. And that's where, for example, a lot of new things came into beings: art, science, connecting the dots, so all of that I feel is we are around the corner, because that was a very physical kind of technology. Now we have digital technology, and because of that, the nature of humanity will change in a positive way. So I've talked about digital renaissance, and what is it going to be and how will it help us. And in the final message I have is that I've talked about my desire framework, which is a bit of a guideline to talk about how do you try to focus on the positives of technology, and how do you consciously stay away from the negatives of the technology. In fact, one thing I just wanted to add here is, I obviously I'm using the term technology quite a bit, but my book actually begins with this very simple thesis that the technology that we used for bulk of the time that we have spent on this planet. I mean, if you look at humanity, we've been around for 50,000, 60,000 years, when our ancestors used to stay in caves and hunt and, just basically survive. So most of that time, technology has been physical. It has made our life easier by, we don't have to now plow fields. There are tractors and there are automated machines. We don't have to walk from A to B. You can take a car, you can take a plane, you can take a cycle or something like that. So most of the technology for during the history of mankind has been what I would call as physical technology, where the basic aim was to reduce the efforts, physical efforts that we put. It's only in the last 20, 30 years, after the internet was born, that technology is actually helping us from a mental perspective. So, if I look at Google search, or if I look at Google Maps, it doesn't really, what it is helping me is, I can sit in a car, or I can sit at my home and explore the world, or go from A to B. And to that extent, it's not so much about reducing physical efforts, but it's about mental efforts. With ChatGPT, you can actually, have a point of view if you feed in some data into ChatGPT, or if you ask certain kind of questions. So it's reducing the mental load. Even smartphones also, to an extent, help us a lot in reducing the mental load. But at the same time, they also increase the what is called as the cognitive load, or the mental load. So over addiction for some of these technologies is a very critical thing. Attention span goes down, ability to think goes down. So I think my entire submission and my theory behind this book is that for most part, technology has reduced our physical load. It's now that it not only reduces the mental load, but it's also increasing the mental load at the same time. And that's why this awareness, understanding how technology works, how it affects us, and more importantly, how we can make the most out of it, and perhaps reduce the negative impacts of technology in us. I think those are my big points that I'm making in my book. Well, I mean, obviously the book initially starts with the history of technology, and it talks about technology that we used many years ago and what we use now. So I think that's a good way to start, because that sets the context about, just understanding how technology has changed and how today's technology affects us in a very different way as compared to earlier technology. And then obviously, after this discussion, then I start describing specifically today's technology, and the entire concept of non-linearity, and how this non-linearity is affecting us, reducing our attention spans, affecting our ability to think. At times it makes us take decisions which are simpler, rather than which take a bit more time. So I talk about that, and then I talk about, yes, with all this, digital renaissance could be around the corner, and how will digital renaissance look? And then in the end, I present my desire framework, which is a bit of a, some helpful tips about how we can use the positive part of today's technology and stay away from some other negative impact. So to that extent, the book is presented in a fashion that you set from the context, then you proceed, and finally, obviously, we end with the desire framework. So I think that would be the best way to actually go through the book. But at the same time, if you want to sort of jump factors and all, they are independent notions, so you can also do that. Because since the book is called nonlinear, it's okay if you read the book in a nonlinear fashion. You don't have to start with the first chapter and necessarily go to the last chapter. But it's easier to appreciate if you set the context of technology, and then sort of proceed towards the desired framework. Well, I think I'm hoping, as I said earlier, that I think the reader becomes a bit more aware about the technology per se. I've also tried to explain some of the basic constructs. So I've talked about large language models, which are the basis of some of the tools like OpenAI's ChatGPT. But it's in a very easy to read with examples description. It's not really technical descriptions, and I haven't gone into algorithms and models and coding and things like that. So I think to that extent, you start with that. It gives you a good context, and it's a easy book to read because my idea was to reach out to as many people as possible. And to that extent, I think just getting basic awareness about the technology, basic awareness about how this technology is affecting our brains, and then what are the kind of things that we need to do. I think that's how I will boil down the entire message, and I hope the readers pick up these 3 4 things, and as a result of that, they themselves benefit. And in the end, I've also given a perspective about if the reader is a parent or the reader is a manager and he manages a team, or the reader is for example, a professor, a teacher, and he's in charge of students. So I've given some additional perspectives also, because I think one way is to say that yes, if I am an adult and I use technology and I want to learn how to use technology better, this book can help you from the desire framework perspective. But at the same time, a lot of us are in charge of other people. So if you're a parent, then obviously you have to make sure that your child is grows up to be a balanced and happy individual. If you're a teacher, then the 40 50 students that you oversee, you have a responsibility and accountability towards them. So in the end, I just have a small chapter which talks about, okay, I mean, the book and the desire framework can help you as an individual. But if you're one of those profiles, like a parent or a manager or a teacher, and you have to look after other people, then how do you, sort of guide them over and above the basic desire framework? So I think that's also something which could be helpful for those of the readers who are not just reading the book as an individual reader, but also as somebody who looks after other people like children or their employees or their students. Well, I'm on LinkedIn, and in the book itself, I've given my LinkedIn profile. And otherwise, I also blog regularly, and again, you'll find the details about the blog in the book on the cover, I think. So I think LinkedIn and reach out to me via my blog. Those are the best ways of reaching out to me. So you'll find both the links as part of the book. So please feel free to reach out and let me know what you think of the book, because I plan to write another book on a different topic, and I think some of the inputs or some of the suggestions that the readers might have will certainly help me when I do my next book. So it's I've worked for 30 years. I'm a CEO of a company, a market research company. And what actually fascinates me is, just understanding people, because that's what I do as a part of my profession. Market research sort of individual person who's a market researcher. The basic skill is to decode people's behavior, understand why people behave in a particular way, and that's my profession. And I keep on reading a lot. I'm a voracious reader. Obviously, as a part of my profession, I keep on talking to people, my employees, our clients, all of that. And then I said, okay, I've learned something over the last 30 odd years that I've been working, and why not share it with people? And even if, let's say, one point helps, one individual, for me, that's a win. So I'm not a professional author, and that's something that I do as I won't call it a hobby, but it's a way of perhaps giving back to the society a little bit of what I have gained when I have spoken to people over 30 years. And that's how the idea came. And as I said earlier, I'm really fascinated about technology. I like technology. I keep on experimenting. And what actually interests me is how is it affecting us as people, as consumers, as individuals. And I thought, let me then write this book so that I spread some awareness about how this technology is very different than the earlier technology. Give people a flavor of how it's impacting us, how it's going to impact us even more, what are the positives and all of that. So I think, that's how the idea behind the book came about. And as I said, I wanted this book to be a general interest book. I mean, I wouldn't, it's a mixture. It's very difficult to put a genre to the book. I mean, it's partly self-help, it's partly about technology, it's partly about, maybe decoding of the technology. So it's lots of things mixed into it, but it's a simple book. I think it's an easy to read book, and I'm hoping that each reader takes away at least one lesson from my book, and for me that's the ultimate satisfaction.